Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of In the Seaweeds, episode 4. Recording this on December 12th, so kind of getting into the Christmas spirit here with the red coloured material. And I am really delighted to welcome another amazing guest to the show here, Kyle Henderson, CEO and founder of Vizion API. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here amongst the seaweeds and the underwater life.
In the seaweeds, and that's really where we want to go, and we've been going with the show since we launched, talking to great founders like you, and talking about the journey and everything that's involved in that. And would love to get started, Kyle, and kind of like thinking about you and your journey and going back to kind of your early days, teenage, college. What was it like? Were you kind of like entrepreneurial from the get go? Were you on a different path and kind of went? What tell us about that.
I was kind of born into it. My father is a repeat entrepreneur, a more small local businesses type of thing, whether that was creating a digital advertising agency in the 80s when digital was effectively desktop publishing to starting film and video studios in the Atlanta area to production companies, a lot of stuff in entertainment. But imagine who the crew was in the early days. It's friends and family members. So I was taught how to work hard labor wise in my teen years, pulling cables on rap music video sets in the Atlanta area. And so uh, I was definitely born into an entrepreneurial mindset of if you have the idea, there's not much stopping you from getting it done.
Very, very cool. So right from the get go, you were kind of going through that entrepreneurial journey, and you saw it in your family, and that kind of inspired you. And then, like from your kind of college journey, where did you want to go? Did you ever see yourself kind of going in this direction, or?
I certainly saw myself going in the direction of tech because one of the things I was exposed to early through my father as well was he was a big proponent of the early internet. And so I was probably 10 years old and logging on to CompuServe for the first time prior to AOL. I remember one day there was some old IBM compatible Tandy, like monochrome um, computers that had been torn out of an old office that somehow my dad got. And I woke up the next morning and found a stack of computers in my bedroom. And this was probably like 1992 or something like that. And one of them happened to have a modem, so I was learning what bulletin board systems were. And so dad took me to the library to check out books about what online BBSs online wasn't even a term yet. You're just dialing in type of thing. So had a lot of early exposure to the beginnings of the internet and got really curious about the time of access to AOL, what these things called websites were. And so was given a book about HTML
Wow.
and started kind of self-teaching myself in the mid 90s about how to build websites just out of curiosity. And that led to a small contractor gig with an internet service provider called Mindspring here in the Atlanta area. And then that led to getting some jobs building some of the first kind of e-commerce checkout carts in the late 90s for a number of corporate customers of that ISP. I was planning to go to Georgia Tech, likely going to get a degree in computer science of some sort, and was seduced away by finances due to scholarships to go to this small liberal arts college in Georgia called Berry College. But they had offered me a job to work in their IT department all 4 years. And so graduated with a degree in the in the study there that had the least number of credits required to graduate, which was philosophy, and worked in building web applications for the school all 4 years while I was there as part of the IT team, and started doing some contracting additional work on the side, and left to go join my first tech startup after graduating. This was like 2005. I had the wonderful pleasure of getting to work at Stanford University the summer after I graduated undergrad. Met some great folks there, and we decided to all move to Beijing, China, and try to recreate Facebook for China. and learned a lot doing that. But kind of got into tech startups before I knew what tech startups were. It
So
was
interesting.
just fun.
So fun. So you're like truly web native, like a bit like myself. Like my journey is quite similar, but
It's
it does.
interwoven into my DNA. I don't know a world without some kind of computer connectivity.
Yeah, and it does make quite a big difference because when I look at the younger folks on our team, it's they're even more than tech natives. They're kind of uh, they're native to smartphones and everything else. But it does make a pretty big difference, I think, born in the era that we are, to be kind of pure web native, and. It's so interesting that you kind of started down that startup path, and then after that kind of Facebook journey and the start of your journey, were you kind of like, okay, startups are the way to go here? I want to continue. Did you continue down that tech path or startup path?
Yeah, again and again. So the role I was a front end developer for the company that called Tong Tong, which Tong in Mandarin means communicate, and when you say the character twice, it means like super uber communicate. Um, and so we built that over 6 months. We pivoted it to a real estate website, sold to a company in Hong Kong. 6 months later, I went and took my money and blew it all in Europe for the next 6 months and moved back to the States and found another tech startup in the DC area to join, focused around geospatial intelligence and mapping and trying to create GIS software as a web application. So this happened again and again and again, where tech startup after tech startup, learning after learning, gradually building more and more successes. But yeah, I've done tech startups in Beijing, Washington, D.C., Chicago, well, Washington, D.C. twice, Atlanta, San Francisco, Mountain View. So been all over the place. My career has started to concretize more around product management though, and with a heavy focus around analytics and geospatial intelligence products. All things mapping nerd, in short. How can you have the geo data attached to everything, which fundamentally geo is attached to absolutely everything that is tangible. So it's an interesting problem set, and product management kind of came naturally, having started as a developer and designer, and then wanting my products to be successful. So learning more about how to sell and market those products. And once you kind of combine those two worlds, you naturally become a bit of a product manager in some sense. There's a little bit of MBA learnings you got to pick up along the way, but uh, I found that easier than diving deep into some of the developer coding languages. Then
Yeah, and I can really see the product, that you guys have built in Vision. You clearly think very deeply about the product, and to an outsider like me looking in, it feels like even the design, like when I look at tech startups and I look at, like, do they care about their design? Do they care about what the product looks like? Do they care about when I land on the website that it's visually appealing and it makes sense? And I can see a lot of that in the product and in your kind of design. Would it be fair to say that's something that was kind of important for you in the vision journey?
absolutely, how you feel about a product is part of its experience, and so design affects how you feel. Uh, the workflow and how you're expected to understand and move through the product affects how you feel. And let's be honest, a lot of business decisions or purchase decisions are kind of initially feeling based. So you want to make a good first impression in that regard. But then you also have to make sure you deliver on the product promise. And I think that was kind of an interesting um, element in how we set out a product strategy here at Vision in the beginning days, because while myself and my co-founder are actually two very design-oriented product people, my co-founder is the CTO, who spent time at Netflix developing their front end and their sign-up processes. I've worked with him at multiple companies. He's always been a very product-minded, technical person, and it was very tough in the beginning days with Vision because we knew from having helped build a company called Clear Metal previously that was later acquired by Project 44. We knew that in the ocean freight space, one of the biggest pain points was both access to data and the quality of data for tracking your freight. And it was very straightforward to go and create a beautiful, user experience and interface that, did everything that the customer ever wanted in promise. But when you actually had to have it work with real data in the real world, it usually fell flat on its face because it couldn't fulfill its promise with that quality and that level of access of data. So in the very beginning days of Vizion, we said, we're going to have to restrain ourselves. We are going to have to make the first version of the product be only an API because it's going to force us to solve the access and quality problem first, which is a cornerstone of everything we want to build on top of. We have immense confidence in ourselves, for good or for ill, that we'll be able to create a beautiful user interface and experience on top of it. But if the data ain't any good, it's not going to matter. So let's focus on that problem first. And we know lots of people have this problem. So
Yeah. And
focus and restraint were very important in the early days.
yeah, and take us
Like
back
I
up.
think we spent 3 years before we allowed ourselves to build a SaaS app, even to demo an API.
Wow, that's awesome. Makes a lot of sense. And could you take us back to like you and your co-founder, like, or specifically you, like when you landed in clear metal and you see supply chain software world, and obviously this was like almost a decade ago or so. It was even different to what it was today. Like, what was your initial reaction? Were you like, this is whack? Like, how does stuff get around the world?
Well, speaking of my co-founder, a quick note, he and I met on GitHub.
Oh, really?
That's how we
Wow.
first found each other
Awesome.
years and years ago. And it attracted him into a company I had started 15, 16 years ago. But when we were getting into the supply chain logistics space, first time it's so probably like around, I'll have to check my resume, et cetera. I think it was roughly about 2015 or so, so 10 years ago. The the supply chain logistics industry had not been like invested in by the VC community the same way, as well as customers and companies had not really made that investment yet to be more tech forward in the supply chain logistics yet. So when you looked at the landscape, you saw, and from a perspective of having built products for in that similar vein of analytics and mapping, but having done it for industry after industry after industry across a number of companies, it matched that pattern of, oh, here's an industry that is ripe for disruption because it's been something of a tech laggard. And it's nichey, but it's one of the biggest niches we've ever seen because it's immensely massive, right? It touches absolutely everything, but it's fundamental to almost everyday life that you could potentially solve some very pointed, high leverage problems and get to a good scale business relatively quickly. That also gave you the tech and data platform to build future products on from a unique and protected position with some moat, et cetera. So from our perspective, in looking at the industry, it seemed ripe for disruption. And I think at the time, early clear metal days, it was just starting to get a little bit of investor interest.
Yes.
Like Project 44 had not blown up yet at that point, blown up in either direction, going big or going or having its troubles, as you might want to say.
Yeah. And
But
it,
it was a different case, but it seemed right.
yeah. And if you if you think back to those days, Carl, like a decade ago, and like where we see ourselves now, when we've been through like so many peaks and troughs and COVID and wars and all sorts, like, when you think back to those early days and you're in clear metal and you're looking and you're kind of saying, whoa, this really is a lagger. There's EDIs all over the place. Most people don't really have APIs back in 2015. And you kind of look forward to today. Like, is it kind of, if you look at that decade long journey that the industry has been on, is it kind of like what you would have expected? Do you think like, I would have expected us to be 2x where we are? Or I kind of, makes sense that things still move, not at warp speed.
I think it certainly seemed like there was a lot of low hanging fruit at the beginning days because this is like you mentioned EDI, but this was also like the era of VANs, value added networks, which effectively were just FTP directories with a lot of branding and business and marketing built around them. So kind of crazy in some sense how big some of those van platforms became. Um, the other element that was interesting there was like there was just a need to get to digitization still, right? You actually had quite a bit of paperwork being pushed in the industry still. And a lot of what the industry thought was digitization was turning a document into a PDF,
Mm-hmm.
which in technically, yes, I will give you the check on the quiz. Yes, that has technically been digitized, but has it been turned into a leverageable data set that you can deploy and utilize across multiple applications and platforms, that sort of thing? No, it's not a well-structured database of some sort. So uh, there, again, there was lots of low-hanging fruit. So their digitization hadn't really happened in a meaningful way yet. Additionally, and a knock-on effect in some sense of that was the industry was still trying to move to cloud and SaaS,
Yes.
right? But you had immense amounts of enterprise software still being deployed and hosted on servers and basements of headquarters offices type of thing. So moving to the cloud was also just something the industry was trying to do then. So the way we talked about it at the time 10 years ago, it was like looking at the banking industry, the consumer banking industry in like the 90s and early 2000s. It had not moved online yet, right? And so supply chain logistics in our mind, there was lots of opportunities just helping it move online at the end of the day. And all of the things that happen to those businesses when they can move online. I mean, Amazon is kind of a great example of what if bookstores have moved online, all the things that you can then leverage after the fact once you've built those foundational elements of, well, you don't just have to sell books anymore, you could sell anything. And you've solved so many problems around delivery, and you've solved so many problems around understanding supply and demand. Like once you have put those cornerstones into place, you
The
can be
foundation.
far more than what people thought you were originally.
Totally. Super,
So
super
yeah,
interesting.
the imagination would run rampant at that point with all the opportunities. But the industry today is more sophisticated.
Yeah.
There's a lot more in the cloud, a lot more APIs, a lot more data sets available.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think it's still an adoption curve. So I think the early adopters have kind of landed. Now is like the trying to remember the names of the four. There's the early adopters, there's the laggers, there's like the early half and like the latter half. I don't remember the two middle ones are called, but I think we're kind of in this period where it's like we have not hit peak adoption of
Mainstream adoption.
moving online for supply chain logistics yet,
Yeah.
but we have moved past early adopters.
Yeah. Got it. And then bring us forward to kind of like not day one of Vizion, but like day zero. You know, the month, the quarter before you guys kind of incorporated or like shook hands to go live. Like what was that like? Was it like, okay, we've seen the industry firsthand, we've had a great experience with clear metal, we know there's, a lot to build in the decade or maybe more than a decade ahead. What was that like?
So it's funny you say that because the idea for Vizion, so this is after our time at Clear Metal, but the idea for Vizion came out of a get together uh, that I've run here and there throughout the years, which is just called True Intent. So get a number of friends slash folks I know from working in the tech industry, get together for a weekend, and everyone just needs to bring a 2-minute presentation. Tell us about something that is absolutely not true today that you believe will be 100% true in 10 years. And what's a business idea around that? And just talking about that. And so one of the things that came out of Clear Metal was, hey, the push to move to cloud and move to SaaS and be more online for this industry is going to be there and is going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen over the next 10 years, industry being supply chain logistics, specifically around ocean freight.
Yeah.
But all of them are going to require access to high value, high quality, highly leverageable tracking data. And that does not exist today.
Yeah.
You can't go to one place and get everything you need. So this is something that will have to exist 10 years from now. And the thinking at the time, because this is like 2018 or so, we're talking about this. And we said, well, why don't we just start this as a side project? Well, everyone throw in a little bit of their resources. Luckily, we had some wins at that point, so we had some resources we could invest, and let's just start chipping away at this idea. Let's do a kind of an internal POC. Can we connect to the data sources we think are valuable? Can we do some basic promises, such as standardizing the events, enriching it with third-party data sets to create additional events that weren't there before, and just things that we thought were not just requirements, but also a few differentiators. And we just started, putting a few hours a week into it for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And we didn't know COVID was going to happen by any means, but we decided to turn the side project into a full-blown company in April of 2020 with the anticipation that the COVID supply chain snarls and shutdowns were going to create pressure to digitize, move online, and get that kind of scalability and efficiency faster than it had been happening. And so we wanted to be in the right spot at the right time. It's a great hockey quote, skate to where the puck is going to be from. I say great because it's the great one, Gretzky, but trying to really anticipate where the market is going to be and make sure that you can be there with having had the right efficiency to get there and prepared to be able to secure more resources if you so chose to capture an opportunity. And so April of 2020, we went out to a few VC friends of ours and was able to secure an initial round of money to be able to stand up the side project as a proper business. And so I think our pre-seed round was like 1.5 million, but at the time it was just Tyler and I, and then a contractor or two who was helping us. And so it allowed us to add in a few more people to the team and actually serve the first real paying customers that summer. We had a number of free customers that we were just providing the service to who were willing to kick the tires at some level of scale for about the 6 to 9 months before that. But we had gotten confidence out of what we knew about what was happening in the industry, like getting like calls from some of the largest CPG chief supply chain officers in the world that I had known from my previous role, asking about if this side project for getting digital tracking data was ready to go yet, because they had desperate needs for it, because they didn't have hands at keyboards in offices anymore and they couldn't do work manually. So we were galvanized by that and started putting more pedal to the metal.
So what was like COVID must have been a wild ride for everybody, but like for you guys, it must have been really something.
Yeah, it was from summer of 2020 through the end of 2022. It was a boom time. Things were moving fast. Attention was coming on strong, and customers were in great need of help and support. So from the perspective of the right place, the right time, we got that right. And we're able to deliver a lot of value and help a lot of customers solve that pain point of where's my freight, when's it going to arrive, why was it delayed, etc. When everyone in the industry was asking those questions at a scale that is far beyond the usual kind of like exception rate of 15% type of thing.
Yeah.
Exception rate went from 15% to 100% overnight because of that period. And so demand changed in a meaningful way.
Yeah. Like, was it, during that period, 2021, 2022, when, ocean freight globally was upside down, you guys had this amazing product that was like, was the most, the best painkiller any of these, big importers and exporters would have wanted. Was it was it like just, 12, 16-hour days, or was it just like, I picture it just being total mayhem. Was that what it was like?
It was long days, and in the long days came in layers, right? Because it wasn't just long days serving the customer, improving the product. It was also long days of, okay, we need to actually build a company around this now, not just hey, here's a piece of software a few people worked up and it delivers some value. We need to like, okay, how do we build operations? How do I figure out, got to get HR? Like we actually need to build a company around this business that was created. And so 2021 and 22 took up a lot of time to stand up the company of Vizion as well as deliver our products. It
Wow.
also meant that we needed to start setting the table for our future product strategy expansions because we also knew that this is a rich vein, this is a fundamental product, but we also heard a lot of other companies wanting to ride our coattails and start doing some of the same thing because the demand didn't change, right? Like the market is going to respond to demand of that scale in some way, shape, or form. So we needed to also be investing in rapidly evolving, improving, and expanding our product offering during that time. Couldn't just rest on our laurels and be like, well, we're done with it. It's just sell it as much as possible now.
Yeah, and when I think of like the visibility sector, Kyle, I often think of it as like one of the only spots in, like, say, global supply chain software that's relatively busy. Like for Ship Angel, we play in a lot of areas where we don't have many competitors. Like when we launched our rate system, um, a journalist in the industry that I respect a lot said to me, "No one is going to buy a rate system because they pay $15 for Excel, and you want them to pay ten to $100,000." And I was going, "Oh shit, maybe he's right." But luckily, he wasn't. But we play in sectors often that are not busy. When I think of the sector you're in, it's busy. Like when you talk about 2021, 2022, you already had like much bigger competitors that were much further down the road, that were had more resources. Yes, you guys just pulled ahead. Like what was that like? Like, are you guys, as a leader and as part of your management team, were you guys thinking about that? Were you like, oh, we've got to be aware, we've got like all these competitors, or were you just like head down, we know we're building the best
Oh,
product, we'll just.
absolutely thinking about it. Absolutely. And this is where the like needing to be extremely, extremely disciplined with focus became important because it wasn't just focus around product. It needed to also be focus around pipeline generation and focus around sales and focus around support and making sure that all of those came together for an incredible customer experience. Um, we we also wanted to make sure that everything we were promising were promises we knew we had a unique service around and had some kind of distinction in terms of quality, right? We didn't need to go play and try to, tit for tat other players. Like getting back to the stories, like we didn't build a SaaS app to stand on top of visibility data for 3 years, right? We focused fundamentally for that time around bringing on additional data sources, different types of data sources that we knew were required for acting out the use cases that the customers cared about. And those use cases got more and more sophisticated because like one of the biggest things in 2021, 2022 is how do I manage detention and demurrage, right? And so the best way to do that is to be getting data directly from the ocean terminal, not the carrier itself, because the carrier is going to be too latent and they don't always pass through that information, right? You need to go connect directly to the terminal to understand last free day, any fees, fines, or holds that are in place available for pickup, these fundamental things. And you need to be able to deliver it within minutes or less than an hour of that status having changed, because this is a key handoff point where getting something wrong or not having visibility will start incurring hundreds of dollars of fees per day for one box type of thing. So are staying focused on where the actual value is created that we could explain to the customer and not getting distracted by other things that could be valuable but are not the musts for delivering the value. So we stayed focused on API. We stayed focused on bringing on additional data sources. We stayed focused on the number one thing around understanding the quality of our product was we had put together a set of KPIs for comparable product quality between ourselves and competitors, and just told the potential customer, when you make a decision, there'll be many factors. These are the core metrics that are going to drive and affect all of your use cases you're imagining for this data. if you do not hit above certain quality scores for the data, then you will not be able to unlock access to that valuable use case. And so whether you buy us or not, I'm not worried. I am worried that you can make a decision that you might regret because you didn't have this level of detail about how to measure and compare what you're shopping for as it relates to unlocking use cases. So like being very direct and trying to think like how the customer would be thinking about the investment they're wanting to make, and really saying at the end of the day, you just need to make sure you're not buying garbage, because garbage in, garbage out. If you believe that is true, then let's continue this conversation for the next 20 minutes and talk about everything we have learned in terms of what the strengths and limitations of visibility data are for unlocking value for your business. And usually that could get a customer to a certain point. But no, there were certain prospects that weren't going to be able to work with us because they weren't, say, ready to integrate an API, right? They didn't necessarily have that level of sophistication or technical resources just yet. So that's okay. But fundamentally, like the things you're going to want to do are going to require data like ours feed through an API at some point, but you're just going to need a SaaS app in the future. So
Yeah.
that maniacal focus is what maniacal focus and measurement that helped us understand why we are better than competitors, and then how do we explain that to a potential customer.
Yeah, and when you think about the product, Kyle, because we came across you guys in a big way this year when we were expanding our platform, and we said, hey, if we're going to be a booking engine, we need a visibility partner, somebody that's done it well. And I asked a bunch of Fortune 100 customers that we work with, hey, who's got a great visibility product, and every one of them only said you guys, and the other big names didn't mention. They said if we have a historical contract, we'll see it out or whatever. But when I think about that, you guys started later, and everything else. If there was the top reason why you guys have a better product, or are favored by particularly these large BCOs, which are ones I speak to, do you put it down to actually building great software in this industry is not common, and not a lot of people know how to do it, and they don't respect the process, so they build subpar products, or they're not obsessive about the customer experience? What do you think?
I think, and first, very flattered by those compliments from your customers, and appreciative, because I think fundamentally at the end of the day, we've received that type of feedback because just two elements, maniacal focus around the product quality, which was those metrics, and then also maniacal focus around customer support. Because the other element that we found, the company started with a focus around, let's organize all the data around containerized freight. First product is tracking. What we found very early on was we were in this situation where it was software people building software for software people. And so we knew the product needs to be able to speak for itself in terms of its quality. But we also knew the industry had a really bad reputation that if anyone was buying like data or APIs or feeds, or a lot of times even just SaaS software, it was very difficult to get quality customer support when any kind of technical question came up, right? You'd be charged professional services for coming in and fixing it. You would maybe wait weeks for the first reply type of thing. We put in, as soon as we're able to start building that company in the summer of 2020, fall of 2020, we put in for ourselves an internal SLA that anytime a support request comes in, there is a human writing a detailed reply within 24 hours to whatever customer sent in. Even could be not an official customer yet. They could be doing a trial, or they could even just be having come into the website and got a trial API key. But the intent was we needed our customers to feel that we were real people who really cared about their success. And the way you show you care is by giving them attention and extremely thoughtful answers. So we also made sure we hired engineers who had great people skills to work as technical customer support because it was a highly technical product at that time as well. So if we had integration engineer from a customer write in a question about a very specific tracking reference that was created and they were uncertain about like with the data that was returned to them, they had a technical reply written to them that might be thousands of words long within 24 hours sent back to them.
Yeah.
And so that extremely differentiated level of customer service, I think, helped us win that admiration that we're so flattered by.
It's kind of reminds me of like the forward deployed engineer piece that you see a lot now when people talk about Palantir, which is like very different in our industry. And then the comment I made earlier, Kyle, about like I started my life more in logistics than software, and I feel like every year I go further out of logistics and more into software, and I know I'm obsessed with building products too, and you know like a huge fan of like HubSpot, and we drew on a lot of that through the modules that we built. And I'm my team give me a lot of stick because I'm very hard on what we build. Like we won't do a product unless it's great, and I find like 8 or 9 times out of 10 when I see something in the industry I feel let down. Like I don't feel in awe. Yet every week I see an AI startup that send me something to look at, and 2 or 3 times out of 10 I'm in awe of what these people are building in other sectors. And the only time I've had that experience this year is when I logged into TradeView. When I was speaking to you guys and I saw the product, and I've seen pretty much everything over the last 20 years. So it's so rare for me to have that experience. I just thought this isn't real. I can't believe this product exists. It is really, really, it feels like something that like everybody in the industry should genuinely know about. It can just make such a difference to so many different stakeholders. Could you talk a little bit about that product?
Absolutely. And I'm so excited because I think we've only delivered like 1% of everything we have planned for TradeView. So already. So that's very exciting to hear. So TradeView certainly had the earliest versions of its ideas coming from back when I was needing to do kind of market research in my clear metal days, just to better understand the industry I was responsible for creating a product for. Now there are other products out there like Descartes Datamine, S&P, Pangea, et cetera. There's companies that were making it easier for you to better understand effectively U.S. customs data. Now, the inspiration certainly had one foot in that time doing market intelligence and market research for the inspiration for TradeView. But the other inspiration from TradeView came from having built multiple analytics and mapping platforms for a number of different industries. Because at the end of the day, in my mind, the global supply chain logistics, it's just a lot of nodes and legs and activities where everything can be profiled in some way, shape, or form. And so the impetus for TradeView was, one, how do we visualize all of the nouns in global supply chain logistics? How do we make doing easy analysis and report building off of those nouns powerful, at your fingertips, easy to use? And then how do we create a SaaS experience that puts a smart perspective of profiles for all those nouns at your fingertips as well? So like the challenge became, well, for TradeView, we always wanted to organize containerized freight data, but our experience at that point was, well, we can organize the data that are effectively our customers tell us to go and collect and track. And that's honestly what we could afford to do at the time in the early stage of the company. But we always knew, hey, we want to get to this point where we're tracking all containers all the time, independently, just to be able to monitor and measure what is happening in the global network. Because our hypothesis is that things in the future will be more complex than they were in the past for a variety of reasons, known and unknown. And the need to have data-driven decisions will only press on the latency of the for those insights more and more and more and more. So how do we get to this platform and solution where I can, within 24 hours at a minimum, know great details about all the different suppliers, buyers, logistics, carriers, movement of freight and cargo in this kind of Google Earth experience as quickly as possible, and to the point of like needing a product to feel great. That's part of why we lean on this. It needs to be like, a Google Earth of global supply chain, logistics, and trade. We wanted to have that kind of impressive first visualization when you first log into TradeView, where you truly get a sense of, I can see everything happening in the world in one view. And then I can dive down deeper into it very quickly. But the motivations from TradeView had multiple beginnings, but part of it was the value I saw in that kind of data 10 years ago, the experience of having built amazing kind of mapping products in the past, and understanding that the market was going to be moving towards, I need more market intelligence faster and independently and agnostically delivered to me in some way, shape, or form. And this all concretized into this idea of TradeView.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see how where you guys go with it. I think it's to me it's a super rare product that I think could benefit like pretty much every stakeholder in the supply chain, and I think it will end up kind of redefining that category that of competitors that you spoke about earlier. Um,
And we're trying to come up with a category name still, and the best we've come up with so far is real-time global trade intelligence.
Yeah, that's why I felt so when I saw the product. I had this rare moment where I felt, whoa, this is just unbelievable. Like for me, the one that really got me was I come from Cork in Ireland, and there's a in European terms a pretty small port there, and I plugged it in, and I was basically looking at all of the container shipments in and out of the port from companies that I knew growing up. It was just unbelievable. Just and then all of a sudden I was hovering over a container ship outside Taranga, that was on the way to Guam, and it was just it's just an incredible product, and I rarely say this, but I would really encourage anybody listening to check it out, and talk to you guys about it. It's unbelievable. Congrats.
And I think the only product in market that's forward looking, right?
Yes,
We
yes,
forecast what is going to be happening in great detail with great accuracy,
yeah. It's
looking 12 weeks into the future.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're coming up on time. I did want to ask you one last question, Carl. Again, when you think about folks that kind of listen in, I always think of as we get a bit older and giving back and thinking about the pace of what you do, and you're running a big company now that's growing. What does your day look like? What do you kind of spend your time on?
Yeah, my day, usually dogs are waking me up at about 5:30 in the morning demanding breakfast.
Beautiful start.
Yeah, so the dingoes get me up early, and then we have our kind of usual pattern of touch points across the company on a weekly basis. So a lot of Mondays are about planning for the week. A lot of Tuesdays is head down. A lot of Wednesdays is checking in on progress. A lot of Fridays is kind of recapping everything that was delivered, et cetera. So we have these kind of patterns we built into how the company works on a weekly basis. But honestly, for like my job nowadays, at least half my days are being in meetings.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about that, in the early days, it was half my day was leading meetings and essentially being project manager for everything.
Yeah.
Now my role is more about what is the right, and usually one or two nudges I should make in a meeting,
Yes.
and let my leaders lead their teams, thinking about it from a management perspective. So there's that element. And so that's probably about half my day is spent working closely with the team in meetings and such. The other quarter of my day is I do a lot of heads down work around TradeView still.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I do a lot, not just helping to improve the TradeView product, but working with the marketing team, because TradeView is an immensely valuable mine of of insights and therefore content. And so helping to pull interesting stories, do analysis, and get insights out of TradeView is a lot of what I spend a day on as well, which then immediately goes into me sending in 27 feature requests every single day, right? Because I'm one of the most active users of the product in that regard. And then I'd say like the last quarter of my day is there's always investor management of some sort. There's the management of your past investors and the management of your current investors and the management of your future investors.
Future investors. Wow.
So that requires it not just requires, but it in my role it's a must to be successful because one of the nicest compliments I was ever given by an investor is that Kyle's strength is that he has plan A, but then he has plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, plan G. And so, and all of those need to be getting pushed forward or working in some way, shape, or form, because all I have control over is putting additional irons in the fire. I don't have control over how the outside world responds to them. So I need to give myself the best bet of when plan A and plan B fall apart, I still have plan C, which is going strong type of thing. So managing past investors, current investors, and future investors is certainly a heavy element of that.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Kyle. I really, really enjoyed the conversation, and congrats to you and the team on building something truly special. We're delighted to be working with you guys, and wishing you get some rest over the holiday season. And we're all super excited to see, particularly with TradeView, where it goes. I'm even more excited now from what you just told me. So super excited for what you guys have coming. So thank you so much for joining us.
That was my pleasure, and thank you for listening and the patience. Patience is
Thank you.
power. So that's the last note I'll leave with people. So thank you so much.